in India. Currently, I'm a second year in MIT Sloan MBA student, and besides that, here right now, it was just told to us that we can organize some breakout session. So I thought that I'll just take our time and I'll just speak directly without any preparation about like my organization and what we do and about my journey as well. So I think before we start, we are such a small group. It makes sense to just introduce ourselves also so that we know a little bit about each other. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm David Brown from the Foresight Institute.
Gary Drescher, many years ago, I worked with Seymour Papworth's Robo Lab at MIT, which worked with different kids and makers.
I'm Tyler with CityAwake Coders, teaching underserved and incarcerated kids how to write code.
I'm Sam Schofield. I'm with the Ecological Development.
I'm Christine, and I'm here with Socialized Justice.
Yeah.
Oh, my name is Melina. What is it that you want to know?
Your name. What do you do?
Oh, what I do? I design software.
Nice. Yeah. So I hope that this, I'll try to restructure it just in real time. I hope this is going to be useful for all of you. So how I started out is like in my undergrad, I did this project for Differently Able. And this research project was to understand how visually challenged students will learn from maps and diagrams and how I can connect, make computer-based technology so that they can learn from maps and diagrams on their own. So my patented innovation was that I basically had this exploding slate. I had a webcam attached to it, and the webcam was connected with the computer. The blind students can place the diagram on the slate, and they can explore the diagram with their index finger. The webcam, it tracks where the index finger is on the diagram. So, and it sends the position of this finger onto the computer. So what happens is basically, if you're touching an object on a diagram, the computer software would know where you're touching the object, and the computer would speak out information. This way, they could learn from maps and diagrams on their own. And when I was doing this project, over the course of 4 years, I realized that what I'm doing is helping these blind students learn on their own. And in these 4 years, I realized that initially when I went out and talked with them, they were like so afraid. They would not even talk to me, like not even say a word. They would just say yes, no, yes, no. And over the course of 4 years, they started telling out the ideas. Oh, if this diagram looked like this, or if this thing was bigger, it would be good. I realized like what I was in this research project, I not only achieved that they could learn from maps and diagrams, but what I achieved is to help them speak out, to help them become more confident, to help them express and to talk to other people. And I realized like that's a valuable skill to have, especially if as a grown-up you're trying to go and get a job or you're trying to find yourself or create your own identity in your life. Um, Going back to the school for the blind in Chandigarh in India, where I did this project, I also realized that they don't have any self-learning resources besides the Braille textbooks. And what happens with Braille textbooks is Braille is basically a raised dot on paper. So once the child is swiping so many times on paper, after a while, some of these dots get depressed, and therefore log errors creep in. Braille paper is very expensive, and typically you have to republish books every year. So there's a lot of concrete cost to that as well to the institute. So I came up with the idea that we are going to develop self-learning audio resources, which should be structured in a way these children learn on their own, and also deliver it to them onto their Nokia handsets, like simple 2 to 5 size Nokia handsets that they have, so that they can really easy to learn and they can just hear anywhere, anytime. So I first pitched this idea to my parents as a child, and they said, "Well, I mean, they were not really excited." I pitched my idea to other people; they were not excited as well. So I went out to my high school friends. I said, "You have got to do this for me, and just come along with me, and let's just do this." Over the course of 6 months, we developed over 10 audio-based lectures, which were really short. We tested them out extensively. We got this feedback from the students. and then we restructured, and then we started delivering these audio modules. So over the next course of 1 year, I pitched in local colleges in and around, and then made this whole set of audio modules from third standard to eighth standard. Seeing that impact, we also got a lot of interest from the teachers over there, and also from the headmaster. The headmaster was also blind, so he really understood it and he really appreciated this audio lectures. He helped us get our nonprofit set up, and we then set up a nonprofit called Arise Impact, which is basically a platform where we can develop more such self-learning resources so that we enable these differently challenged kids to become more confident and also to express later on. Um, so over a course of 3 years, we developed over 200 audio-based modules, not only with the course that they have, the course content, but also we develop modules such as stories or dictionary or other things as well, which are indexable as well. Um, Now we are planning to launch an Android app, which will take all our audio resources, wrap it up in a very interactive way, and also in a searchable way, so that the visually challenged can talk to the app, and then they can get the feedback in the audio. That's basically our next project that we're thinking to do. Uh, and that's basically the whole line of the projects that we've done and the journey so far. However, there are some things which I would also like to say um, with this key takeaways, which I would think would be useful for you all. Number one, with respect to design of software, what I really realized is when we started going from just visually challenged to other kids like deaf and dumb, we realized like that particular segment of kids is so different learning process than the visually challenged kids. So let me tell you more about that. So for example, once you are visually challenged, you cannot see things. Therefore, what you can do is you can hear or you can touch. Hearing is also like one way, or like serial in nature, and touching or tactile is also like you go from one point to the other. So their learning mechanism or their absorption mechanism becomes like more serial processing in nature. They learn from one concept to the other rather than taking in multiple concepts at a time and learning from that. Whereas once you take a deaf and dumb kid, they just uh, they just see things. So they can see many things and they can process it, but they don't have this audio or they, and they do have the touch thing too, but then you can touch a few different things at the same time. And you can make sense of it. So their learning process, on the other hand, is more like parallel in nature. They like to do things parallel. It has to be that. It's difficult for them to go from one step to the other. And that's where we thought about, oh, these are different segments of the market. And I mean, for a customer or user whom we're designing, and therefore the design of the content itself needs to be very. So the other thing is also the user interaction. For example, like for this visually challenged people, you don't need a screen. You just don't. So it can be simple, whatever it is, it needs to be more audio or tactile. So for the tactile screen, you probably need it, but you don't need a visual screen. For the deaf and dumb people, it's better if you have a bigger screen. Like really, small size Android screens don't really work well with them. To explain a bigger concept, it's better for them to have multiple going on. So that has been my one of the key takeaways I've given this audience. The second key takeaway, which I would say, is that in my journey so far, I realized like people have been very apprehensive about your idea. And if your idea is so unique and so different, like because I started out thinking like, oh, we are not going to focus on classroom learning. We are not setting up something to help them just do something on certain projects, but we're helping them to learn on their own, which means we are augmenting the classroom learning. And many a time when we communicate with our nonprofit partners or prospective partners, they somehow also think that we are trying to compete with them in terms of like we're trying to gain traction for the education, but we are not. We're clearly augmenting it. And I see that as helping that in any area that you do in your life, especially if it's very unique, very innovative, very niche, there are chances that people are not going to accept it. And you just have to take that, accept it gracefully, and just try to communicate through your actions and through results. I found that by communicating through your actions and results have created more impact. Like, it took us about 2 years to establish ourselves in one particular school, that is Schools of the Blind, with our resources. But then it took us like about 6 months to expand from one school to 6 partners. So once it's accepted, once it's established, and once I could say, oh, our resources have 98% engagement levels in students. On average, they increased 21% test scores of children. Once the other schools saw that, they just signed on. And we are looking forward to partner with many other schools in India, and also we're looking, our next thing is also how do we connect this developed community, such as US or Europe, with developing communities such as India or Africa. Like how do we connect these kids together or talk to each other? Maybe there would be some leverage that they can have for sharing knowledge. So that is my presentation. Thanks for coming. Are there any questions you want to ask?
So is it all developed in English?
It's relevant in local languages. So in our research, we also found that many of these kids, the environment that they're raised in, that they're coming from, if they're not Indian, they have like Hindi or Punjabi, but they're not good at English, and that also affects their job prospects. In fact, because once you have a particular language, each language, you cannot just go and work out in a job. So what we did is we did bilingual audio lectures.
When you say bilingual,
I'm talking about Hindi and English, Punjabi and English, Marathi and English. So it was tied with English at the same time. So that the thing is, if you're learning a new language, you need to communicate, you need to hear in that language. And because these kids live in such close communities, which is typically like themselves, and they're very regional, so they just know the local language. They're not exposed to English language, they don't get it. That's why we're trying to create more resources which are bilingual, which speak in their language and also in English, so that they can interact with both the languages and learn.
So when you're doing a regional proof of concept,
Yes, we do a regional proof of concept. And it's also very school-based because different schools have different needs. We find that when we're working with different partners, some schools are great teachers in computer science, some schools are bad with great teachers in social science and not in the other subjects. So it depends, you need to customize there as well. But with the non-profits, I feel you need to customize partner base as well a lot. Yeah.
We have a question. How do you guys separate yourselves from audiobooks?
Yes. So audiobooks, what we found, mostly, at least in India, number one, most of them are in English, which is, and if it's a audiobook developed in the US or Europe and given to India, the accent is so different that they cannot understand it. Like they cannot even understand my accent. And if I'm speaking to them, I need to say, how are you? Like I need to speak really slowly too. The pace also matters. Especially because English is also such a new language for them. So audiobooks in other languages, typically, they're just blind recordings of the current textbooks available. So the content is not really structured with the learning process. These are the two things. That's why we have to do out of that content.
What's the main reason behind, you said the screen size really matters for certain
Yeah,
kids
yeah.
with disabilities? I mean, is it just because, what's the reason behind
So
why
I
large
would,
screens?
okay, so I get what you're saying. What I really, I think I would just correct my statement. So, I mean, like the visualization that we're showing with respect to the screen size matters. This should be very clear. So we are in booth number 28. Please visit.